my name is Robert Walker. I'm the Facility Director and a Park Naturalist at Bladensburg Waterfront Park, part of the Natural and Historical Resources Division with the Prince George's County Department of Parks and Recreation. Thanks for joining me today during our virtual STEAMFest event. Today, we're talking about ancient and modern wetlands. Have you heard the word wetland before? Do you know what a wetland is? If not, just break down the word. Wet and land. A wetland is a fascinating ecosystem of land that is, you guessed it, wet. Some wetlands are wet all the time, like our Bladensburg Marsh here at Bladensburg Waterfront Park. Some are wet seasonally or with tides and floods. Some wetlands don't even look wet, but the soil is saturated underground. We are lucky in Prince George's County to have so many wetlands along our rivers and streams because they are one of the most awesome ecosystems around. They provide excellent habitat to birds, fish, turtles, snakes, frogs, mammals, and many other critters. They are also full of unique plants that love water. Plants like cattails, smooth cordgrass, arrow arum, wild rice, bald cypress, and the beautiful rose mallow. The real secret to wetlands, though, is their ability to filter and clean storm and river water. Wetlands are called nature's kidneys because just like kidneys help remove waste from your body, wetlands filter and remove chemicals and sediments and other contaminants from a water body, like our Anacostia River at Bladensburg Waterfront Park. As stormwater flows into a wetland, the design and vegetation in the wetland acts like a trap, a barrier to capture sediment and pollutants inside the wetland. Some wetland plants even have the ability to soak up excess chemicals into their roots, like nitrogen and phosphorus, storing it and removing it from the waterway. While the wetland removes contaminants, the water itself is slowed down so that silt and sediments settle to the bottom of the wetland. The filtered water is released slowly into the nearby river or stream, clearer, cleaner, and healthier for wildlife and humans. We're going to demonstrate this today. If you have your materials, you can follow along with me. If not, just watch my demonstration. If you want to do the activity later, a description of the experiment will be linked in the chat box. First, we have our rainwater, clear and unpolluted, until it lands on impervious surfaces like sidewalks, parking lots, and buildings. Rainwater can't soak into impervious surfaces, so it becomes runoff. And while it travels, the rainwater washes away all the trash, debris, chemicals, and excess sediments on the land. Every water bottle, chip bag, pile of dog waste, fertilizer, pesticide, and more. So let's mix our pollution with our rainwater to make contaminated stormwater. So I'm going to add some dirt, that's our pretend pollution today, into my rainwater. Add a little bit like this. Put it right in my bottle. I'm going to make a little bit of a mess. That's okay. All in the name of science, right? All right. Get a little bit more. Swirl that around. Okay, our rainwater is now polluted with all those things we just mentioned. Our other bottle is going to be our river, and our funnel will be the hillside sloping into the river. So let's make a hypothesis. A hypothesis is an educated guess. Without a wetland to buffer the river and filter the pollution, what would happen if this storm water washed right into the river? Simple, right? It's going to pollute the river. Yuck! Now, a variable is the thing that can be altered in an experiment. So in this experiment, having or not having a wetland is the variable. So let's quickly reset and change our variable by adding a wetland. Instead of digging up real wetland plants, we are going to use substitute plants like coffee filters and cotton balls. These are our pretend wetland plants. And we're going to build our wetland in our funnel. So if you're following along with me at home, you can layer, fold, tear, or do anything you want to make your wetland unique. Make it yours. I'm going to put some cotton balls in first to make my wetland. I'm gonna take a layer of coffee filters in there, maybe 2 coffee filters, fold them in there a little bit, have a nice dense wetland, maybe some more cotton balls. All right, I'm gonna put my stormwater back up in the clouds. Gonna reset. All right. All right. So now that you've built your wetland in your funnel, it's time for a storm, okay? But before we continue, let's pause and make sure we're ready for the next step. If you're doing the experiment at home, I recommend getting a kitchen towel or some paper towels in case you spill some water. I would also recommend moving your wetland away from your computer or other electronics so they don't get wet or damaged. Lastly, try to hold the funnel and the river bottle with one hand while gently pouring the storm water with the other hand. Or you can ask an adult to help you. Everyone ready? Great, let's go. The sky is getting darker. The wind is picking up. The clouds look heavy. It's starting to rain, but this time, our river has a wetland that can slow that water down and filter out a good amount of the contaminants. So make sure you don't pour more water than the wetland can hold, because that would be called a flood, and that is bad for everyone. So I'm going to pour my storm water into my wetland. It is raining, and it's going down my hillside. And we'll see what happens. All right. Everybody see that? So I didn't flood it. Hopefully you didn't either. All right. So now that our wetland is full of rainwater, we are going to let our wetlands do their thing for a couple minutes. Okay? I still have some dirt left over from when I did our earlier hypothesis. All right. As the contaminated stormwater moves through your wetland, let's make some observations, because every good scientist needs to make observations during their experiment. See how the water entering my river is dripping slowly? I observe that my stormwater is slowing down in the wetland. Now I'm going to check my wetland in the funnel. Wow, so much pollution is up here. I observe that the contaminants are being trapped in our wetland plants, the cotton balls and coffee filters. Finally, I'm going to look at my river overall. I observe that when the rainwater enters my river, it's much cleaner and clearer than how it started. This filtered water is better for fish to breathe in, better for turtles to swim in, better for birds to hunt in, and better for all other animals to live in. It's also better for us humans to use so we can enjoy and recreate in it. So how did you do? Did your wetland trap all of the contaminants? Is the water ending up in the river perfectly clean like it was before it was polluted? No, I'm sure some pollution still got through. Wetlands do the best that they can, but they're not perfect. They can't remove all the pollution. So I want to challenge you. Next time you're out in your neighborhood, going on a walk, or playing on your playground, maybe wear some gloves, or take a bag with you, and safely pick up all the trash that you see. Every piece of trash removed from the ground is one less piece of trash that can wash away during a rainstorm and end up in our local rivers. I hope you learned a little bit about wetlands today and how important and cool they are. Now, I'm going to turn it over to my friend Kristen to tell us all about archaeology and how studying marshes, a type of wetland, helps us put together the pieces of the past.
Thanks, Rob. Hi, everyone. My name is Dr. Kristen Monteperto, and I'm the Natural and Historical Resources Chief Archaeologist. I'm a scientist, but sometimes people don't understand what I do for a living. So today, I'd like to share with you a little bit about my job. As an archaeologist, I study cultures from the past, like American Indians who lived here thousands of years ago, or you have English colonists who arrived 400 years ago. You also have enslaved African American laborers who worked on tobacco plantations just 200 years ago. Now, I do have to say that my job with Parks and Recreation definitely is not as exciting as Indiana Jones, but it can be pretty cool and it's definitely a lot of fun. So archaeologists here in Prince George's County, Maryland, have discovered so much about these diverse cultures by digging at one of our archaeological parks, Mount Calvert. This site is located near a vast marshland on the Patuxent River. Now, the native peoples built semi-permanent villages near that marsh that lasted for thousands of years. They hunted, and then they fished, and they also gathered plants for food and medicine. So I want you guys to think about it like a biological supermarket. The Europeans and Africans who arrived here after the 1600s also did their shopping in this location. Although, with all the clear cutting of trees and the soil runoff, it has really destroyed large portions of that original marshland over time. In order for archaeologists to understand how these cultures lived, we carefully dig through the soil to find artifacts. So you might ask yourself, what exactly is an artifact? These are things that were either made, used, or modified by a person. Some examples of artifacts can be ancient stone tools, like these spear points that were used for hunting. Other things are shells, and here we have some bone. And these are things that we find that were left over after a meal. We can also find different things like plates, which we have here, and this is part of a bowl. So these are showing us where food was served, or what type of things food was served in. So all of these artifacts show us how people lived and what different kinds of food they ate. It's also really important that we draw and we photograph everything we find in the field so that we're keeping really detailed records. Now, I do have to say, what I do not do is I do not dig dinosaurs. This is a very common misconception. That's paleontology. So paleontologists study ancient plants and animals like Maryland state dinosaur Astrodon johnstoni. Astrodon was found right here in Prince George's County at our very own dinosaur park. Paleontologists have found fossils of plants and animals that are part of a 115-million-year-old wetland. We know this was a wetland because fossils of cypress trees, freshwater mussels, you have snails, fish, there are crocodiles, and there are even turtles are typically found at Dinosaur Park. In fact, turtles are one of the more common fossils that we do find at the park, which include pieces of their shell and even a rare skull. So these ancient turtles, like Arundel were similar to modern species we find today in Maryland's rivers and wetlands. At that time, though, a vast river flowed through this area. And just like today, when plants and animals die, it's their remains that float to the bottom. Eventually, these remains were covered with sediment, which mineralizes over time and preserved their remains for us to find today. Some of the other dinosaurs we have found are a giant carnivorous dinosaur called Acrocanthosaurus. That is a tongue twister. A smaller raptorial dinosaur called Deinonychus. We also have found ostrich-like dinosaurs and a really large armored dinosaur called Priconodon. Visitors can come to Dinosaur Park during our staffed programs and they can see some of these amazing fossils we have found. And just like archaeologists, paleontologists also have to draw and photograph the objects they find in the field. This allows all of us to visualize the small broken artifacts or the fossils might look like. Now, during this month's STEAM activities, you can try your hand at drawing scientific illustrations of our actual fossils and learn the crazy history of how people first discovered prehistoric creatures. Now, I gotta tell you, here's a little hint. It involves one of our former presidents, President Thomas Jefferson. This activity is gonna involve both science and art. So it's gonna be like STEAM ×2. So be sure to sign up for Art and Fossils in Early America on November 4th and learn about ancient and modern history of Maryland, or you can also sign up for our other great STEAM science programs. With some of these programs, you'll be able to learn the fun things related to modern creatures like pollinators, owls, predators, or you can even get a lesson on animal characteristics in Spanish. You can also come in person to experience some of our great natural parks, which include, we have Patuxent River Park, we have Mount Calvert, and we also have Bladensburg Waterfront Park. So come and join us. Rob and I hope to see you there.